I'm Rebecca Cuthbert with Alien Buddha Press, reading Horror Showdown Finalist number 4, The Demonic Protection Act by Daniel Lukes. For this one, we're at City Hall. The creature moved fast, sweeping across the playground, lapping up children and sucking skin, blood, and organs from their bodies. The bones it rejected, spewing them out in gelatinous piles. Kids screamed and ran to the school doors. Teachers raised their rifles and fired repeatedly upon the beast, which roared, swooped, and gored them with its tentacles, swirling them high into the air and dashing them against the school walls and playground floor. But it did not eat them, as it disdained older flesh. Once sated, it buzzed its little wings, and after doing a little victory dance, it flew up into the clouds and disappeared. Its next appearance was at a press conference, standing behind a group of demonic senators who, hooked up to its body with tubes, sipped gently at the golden fluid that flowed generously out of fissures in the demon's flesh. The monster, whose name we'd learned was Azrael, looked placid and content, but also pensive and inquisitive, dumb and animal at the same time. Reading the affect of these new inhabitants in our world was often frustratingly difficult. The senators, meanwhile, looked triumphant and defiant as they stood in block, united in defending their position. The Demonic Protection Act, signed and ratified by a majority of this Parliament, clearly states that demonic acts must be respected with no retaliation, said a fat old one, the leader of the group. He looked a little like a turtle and was praised for his political brinkmanship and acumen when it came to bending rules to his party's advantage. His expression was serious and official-looking, but beneath the air of authority he conveyed, there was a sparkly merriness in his eyes. He hiccuped gently, a bubble of the golden fluid, for really it was blood, purified children's blood, mixed with some angelic bodily secretion popping on his lips. But how can we afford to keep losing our children in this horrific, brutal way, piped up a young, tall male journalist from CNN. Azrael started, jerking the group of senators slightly with him, his face a clown mask of sudden dismay and horror. "Sit down, you bitch," yelled another of the senators, a squat and bearded fellow, raising his hands in placatory manner and staring ahead in sanctimonious, patronizing fashion. Demons have the full right to comport themselves according to their nature. We've established this and accepted it as a society. You want to relitigate that, take it up at the next election, you bitch. The journalist sat down, chastened, humiliated, and feminized. Azrael grinned, grunted, and quickly started making shapes with his hands, spinning images of the slaughtered children into whirring blurs of color as they played in their yard, and their bodies exploded into slow-motion animations of jellied organs, transparent like gummy candy. The liquid being fed to the senators turned a bright hot pink, and their faces took on a hallucinatory, melted appearance, with wide-eyed grins and dripping jowls. "Fuck you," shrieked a gaunt, inhumanly tall senator from Florida with a bald head and sad, caring eyes. "Fuck all of you for thinking you can handle this better than us as you sit in your armchairs at home and you don't even get to taste the nectar of the gods, and my God, I can tell you it's delicious." They all chuckled in unison, Azrael mugging and flexing for the crowd that sat there aghast and sickened. "But what about angels?" asked a young female journalist from OAN. "What about the divine? And when God's side chooses to fight back, aren't you afraid of the judgment and the punishment for selling your souls to the demonic side, the dark side?" "You absolute ninny," said a short, buff senator, the junior senator from dark Indiana, with full bitterness in his mouth, the pink liquid turning to civet between his lips as he fluttered his eyelashes and flashed his eyes with a dark fury. The demon hung back slack, all ears as to how the senator would respond. This is a fight for the soul of our nation, you treasonous hack. I swear you bitches don't know what side your bread is buttered on. He shrugged, went loose, as if something had given way inside his body, then looked up sharply. You don't think we hear God? You don't think we are doing exactly what God fucking wants us to do? These are God's angels here on earth. Their ways may be obscure to us, often strange and unacceptable to puny humans. But come on, you've heard it your entire stupid lives. God works in mysterious ways. But how do you know it isn't the devil speaking to you? Bellowed a senior, beloved journalist from the New York Times. Maybe you are Christian Satanists. You think you're doing God's work, but you've actually been seduced by the devil and you're working for him, his infernal majesty. They have horns on their heads after all, he said, pointed a bony finger towards the demon. This was met with chuckles all around, except from the podium. Off with his head, screamed the junior senator from dark Indiana, ripping the tube from his mouth. Asfael, like a trained attack dog, leapt and in one vicious bite ripped the head off the beloved journalist from the New York Times, flinging it deep into the scrum of screaming, panicking journalists trampling each other to get to the exit. And that's the moment when the junior senator from Indiana became presidential material.